the embracing, the love that there's always so much change in this music and genre. And I think that, in many ways it can cause frustration or headache, but in so many ways it keeps it so exciting. And
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Alex with Rave Culturecast, and I'm here with SIDEPIECE, also known as NITTI, and Party Favor. What's up, guys? It's been a minute.
What
What's
up?
going on, man?
Whoa! How did I just get balloons?
You got balloons.
What did I do? What did I do?
The peace sign, the balloons came up.
That's sick.
Wait, what did I do? That was crazy.
I've never seen that before.
Party. I don't know. Maybe it's because we said party. Maybe
is it because I said party? Party Favor.
I don't know. Well,
whatever.
Maybe it'll happen again.
Yeah, we love it.
You just be grateful that you got the balloons.
Even if it only happens once, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's been a minute. I interviewed you guys the early part of the end of the pandemic when you guys were just getting out to playing shows again.
Crazy.
And I think you guys had maybe seen 2 or 3 crowds together as a duo. So I got to ask, now that you're like 5 years into this project and 3-4 years of playing shows, what does it feel like to see crowds so familiar with what you guys do as a duo as opposed to what you guys do separately?
I think, I guess what's fun is like when you talked to us last time, we hadn't had the lived experience of being a part of SIDEPIECE. And I think that what's been really cool is that what Ricky and I at the time were super excited, and we worked together on the music and we're earlier in this project, but we were just kind of acquaintances. And I think that even, since that point, we've obviously experienced, some of the festivals that I've always dreamed of playing. I'm sure Ricky as well. And then on top of that, we got to become, best friends and experience all these things together and do so many amazing things that, that this group has afforded us. And so I think that it's just been, it's like a night and day difference from when you first started, but we didn't even know when we started this project. It was just like, this is something for fun for us on the side, we'll see what happens. And, it's just making cool music and, here we are. So we're very grateful.
Yeah. That's really cool that what was previously a working relationship has blossomed into a friendship. How do you feel like that's affected your shows and affected the music you're putting out or music you're working on together?
So this last tour, we did kind of I wouldn't say smaller, we're not proud of it, but just a bit more intimate of a club round of shows. And me and Dylan have just been, kind of reminiscing, we're basically on the tail end of it, finishing it up. We had some festivals. We did have some big shows in there, but all those little ones where we got to play to 500 to 1,000 cap rooms, we just feel like we got we really got our set and our vibe on stage together. We just started having way more fun. Something as stupid as social media content, I think it's showing more. So, a lot of the fans and maybe people don't know the back end of the music industry, but it's a lot of work for us as artists these days. And it's not to complain, everybody has to work hard. So, it's more of it's a lot behind the scenes of wow, we have to come up with something and be ourselves. And when we had to force it, sometimes it never felt good. And this past year, we both I feel blossomed, as stupid as it sounds. We both feel all this new music and all the new, right before you got on, Dylan, I was talking to him for 30 seconds and he was like, oh, how are you guys? What are you doing? And I was like, dude, we just shot a promo for our biggest show ever. And it was so fun because it was me, Dylan, and a videographer and, 1 or 2 people. And we did it what we felt like doing. We didn't have this huge director thing. Oh, remember this TikTok trend? Oh, big deal here. It was all this stuff where the music and the content and everything about the project feels like me and Dylan having fun again. And it's it really had this we went through the full 4-year cycle where it's you have a big song, you go tour, and then you get so toured out that you kind of have to refine and surface back to yo, what made SIDEPIECE work? It was me and Dylan. Like you said, we didn't care about a big song or about selling thousands of tickets. We were we like house music. How do we have fun with it? And it's we did that. Like you said, the 4 or 5 years of this cycle, we were I feel like we're both just more excited than ever, like when we first started. So that's what this new year is kind of like feeling like for us.
I mean, I love to hear that, because everybody knows that being a musician right now is just as much about content as it is about the music itself, sometimes more so. And I feel like for some people, it's really hard to come off authentic in what you're doing as a content creator. And you guys managed to do that really well. And maybe that's, because of your friendship, or maybe it's because you guys never really had expectations at all for this project. It was just something fun to do.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to talk about something you tweeted a few weeks ago. You said as soon as we started following our guy to get in the studio and stop listening to outside voices, the record started smacking again. Were you guys going through a period of not feeling like your stuff was working? Because I know every creator goes through periods of like creative deficit. What was that tweet inspired by?
I mean, I think we've always been, for the most part, I feel like we've always been pretty proud of what we've made. And I think that, just like anything, any artist, you second guess, or you say, okay, am I doing the right thing? Or like, what is working? Am I going to adapt? Like, do I try to do, lean into what's working or what's changing in terms of the music or the scene? And I think that, when you start to get big, like Ricky was saying, you get toured out, you get kind of jaded with everything, and there's all these people, there's so many cooks in the kitchen, and you've got label influences, and you've got management, and you've got Ricky and I, like in not a negative way, but sometimes we'll disagree about something, or we'll about a direction of this or whatever. And I think that what happened is we got kind of in this cycle of just like Ricky and I were outsourcing our ideas and thoughts about music to kind of everyone but ourselves. And we kind of lost sight of like what made this project work was like our own instincts. And it was, Ricky's instincts with this and mine with this and us together. And I think that as soon as we kind of started getting back into that, on top of everything else that Ricky said, was we've started kind of just like finding that joy again that we had in the beginning. That was just like when there wasn't expectations. Cause I think it's hard, like no matter what, like, a lot of people rely on us, and this is our livelihood, and we work really hard, not just for ourselves, but for our whole team and everybody.
Right.
And I think that it has to come from a place of genuine, like, word vomiting here, but like, genuine, creative place for us to, I think, to hit that. Yeah. Just authenticity. Yeah.
I mean, as a duo, I mean, you kind of touched on this, but you guys are two people, and you guys obviously disagree, and sometimes, and you guys have to figure out a way to come back from that. And you kind of touched on this idea of authenticity and working together and getting back to your instincts. How do you guys trust your instincts as a duo and trust each other's instincts? Like, where does Ricky start and Dylan finish, and Dylan finish the puzzle?
I think it's like a relationship type of thing where I even, Dylan's wife, I'm sure him and his wife do this. Me and my fiance do this, but any relationship, you're not 50-50 all the time. It's a very natural thing to be unbalanced. And once you find comfort in that, and one person, say I'm feeling like 30% today and I'm not that creative, and Dylan's like, I thought of this dope remix. It's called Ayo for Yayo. Check it out. And I'm like, wow, this is dope. Now I'm inspired to work on it with you, and vice versa. When it's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling tired from that flight. And I'm like, I don't know why I had this burst of energy to start something or an idea, or, oh, this piece of content, this would be so funny if we do this. And it's like, that's where it starts and ends, is that sometimes I'm at 30% and Dylan makes up 70, or vice versa. So like, to me, it's more, we've just learned over the last 5 years, like, oh, you kind of just got to treat it exactly how you would any other, good relationship, where we just have each other's backs. And that's kind of the best. This is the best place we've been at for that. We're just, I have this idea. Cool. I trust you. Let's do it. Let's run it. And, oh, what if we just fix this little piece? Oh, perfect. That makes it even better. Just, that's kind of where I think we've gotten to, where we just trust each other.
What a cool, what an advantage you guys have to have somebody you trust working on stuff with you. Like, a lot of people, there's so much individualism in music, everybody's got to do everything themselves. Everybody's got to mix it. They got to master it. They got to come up with the ideas. They got to come up with the content. But you guys have this huge advantage in that you always have somebody to bounce your ideas off of. You have somebody to tell you, this is a great idea, or this is an okay idea. I think I can make it better though by doing this, and this. Or like, hey, maybe that thing you did right there, maybe not working. Let's do something else. I love that. I love that you guys are able to work that way together.
I think it's like, in certain ways, it's like, sometimes it's a humbling experience, because like there's times where I'm like, like I'll have an idea sometimes, and I'll even be like, I'll know that I'm like, yo, I have this idea, I know it's going to work, but honestly, I think Ricky's going to be better at being able to get it to where I think it should go. Cause like I probably would, like, I know what I want, but like it's going to take me a minute to figure out what I want to do. And then Ricky might be like, oh, that's a great idea, and literally do it in 20 minutes. And I'm like, shit, but it's like, I think being able to understand and being able to be like, hey, wait a second, like, this maybe isn't not necessarily like my skill set, but maybe it's like, I have someone to lean on to be like, wow, okay, where maybe I'm lesser, or, aren't as good as this one thing or whatever. Like, I know that like maybe he can take it there. And then if we both can't, then we know we're like, okay, maybe it's not meant to be, and I think that there's been cases like that. Like he said, like maybe he's, how, I don't know, like, okay, that's cool, but I can't see it either, but then maybe I can, or whatever. And I think that being able to kind of like, it's not like taking your ego out of it, but I think that we've been able to really just like, if he says something where he's not into something of my song, I don't take it personally and be like, oh, like, right, well, why do you not like this? Or like, well, you have to put it out like this. It's like, we've been able to kind of, I think, over time get to the point where it's like, we're all coming from a place of like, we want this to be the best it can be. And sometimes it's like, my idea is the best, or his idea is the best. And it's like, as long as it gets us to the best spot, that's all that matters, So like, yeah.
Have there been times when you've had to like suck up your ego when the other one has told you that a certain idea is better, and then you look back on it now and you're like, oh wow, I'm so glad that he told me that this was a better way to go?
For sure.
Yeah.
For the most part, luckily, we're like already pretty aligned on most things before we would get to that spot where it's like, wow, this was that big of a change. But there's definitely been times, I think, where like, I can't, maybe not a specific time off my head, but I'm like, oh wow, like, yo, that was genius. Like the fact that you changed that, or added this, or you changed, it started out as this more like tribally groovy record that then he's like, oh, I'm going to switch the drums to more electro vibe. Wow. Well, something like that, where it's like, wow, I didn't think of that, but it made the whole song different. So,
right.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something that you've collaboratively done, your recent release, Who Created Love, which you said took you over 3 years to write. That's like almost the entirety of you guys being together as a duo. Was that all like process? What was it about that record that required so much time?
So originally, it's like the real weight was that it was just a song kind of laying around that this really good writer and on who's featured on it now, Midian.
Yeah,
we had like a piano version and guitar and nothing else, so it wasn't so much that every couple months we would work on it. It was that for the first 2 to 3 years, it kind of was just this record that was like, wow, this is special. What do we do with this? And right, not to like name an artist, but there was a bigger artist that was interested in the record, because sometimes when you have a song sitting, you're like, let me go, especially if it's a special one, you might want to pitch it. At the time, It wasn't house at all. It wasn't like NITTI. It wasn't, SIDEPIECE. It was just a record. We both produce for a lot of people, and we've done that. So, sometimes songs come back into our SIDEPIECE group because we're like, hey, remember this? Hey, remember this? And so it was one of those ones where, one day it was just hit, and it was like, wait, why don't we make this a SIDEPIECE song? You know what I mean? So that was mainly the majority of the time, was a record kind of just settling, and it finally came back. And this year we basically revamped, added a cello player, re-recorded the vocals at least 3 different times. We did an acoustic version. So like this past year, we've actually put a lot of work into it. But for 3 years, it kind of just hung out as an idea, and no house, no electronic, no drums, no synths, nothing. So that was kind of this past year, was getting it up to a SIDEPIECE version. And that's really what took the whole amount of time. But yeah, this past year though, we really did put in a lot of work, and pretty recently we shot something for an acoustic version. So it's like, it's just a really special one that's like, man, it has all this history to it. You know, it isn't just like a girl sent us a vocal and we added, you know, boots and cats and boots. It was like everything about this that you hear in the song was we all put our ears in our heads and said, this needs to go here. We need a violin. We need a this, recut the vocal, makes the vocal better. Like we've really like, you know, put our time and effort into this one.
I think sometimes there's like,
go ahead.
Oh, no. I think what's a great point to that is it's like a larger point about music in general, because it's like a lot of artists I'm sure would agree with us that, or what, you know, me when I say this, but it's like sometimes there's just a moment for songs and there's not. And sometimes you just have a song and you're like, this is cool, but like it needs to sit. And then, I mean, I know, and I'm sure you have too, Ricky, like maybe an old NITTI song you worked on or whatever. And it's like, you're like, you couldn't figure out what to do with it. And then literally like 2 years later, randomly you're going through stuff. And you're like, oh yeah, whoa, I haven't listened to this in a while. And you listen to it and you listen to it with such fresh ears that it almost is like a complete new slate. And I feel like in a way, that's what happened with this song, right? Like what Ricky was saying, started something else and brought it with years kind of like where it wasn't even in the side piece world. And then I was like, wait a second, what if it was? And it was approached in a way where it was like almost not hearing it for the first time, but like revisiting it for a new time. And I think that like that, you know, has happened even with some of our other songs too, not even just this one, where it's like, wow, we, you know, like we sat on the song or it started it years ago and then we're like, oh, whatever. And even like sometimes we'll play old records and like, damn, we need to revisit this or like whatever, because we hear it with a new light. And I think it's important to kind of sometimes know that like songs can take a long time, but it's not like every single moment we were sitting there like changing, you know, sounds on every single time.
On that note, do you delete stuff from your do you delete project files, or when you start something, if you know that there's kind of like, okay, there's something here, I may not go back to this for years, how often do you just say, this is a clunker, I'm getting rid of it, or this has potential, I may revisit this down the line?
I don't think many people delete. That's pretty rare. Like it maybe maybe 1 or 2 times ever, and then I regret it. So like that's exactly like what Dylan was saying. The reason is because you might not have the maturity to realize how to hit the song. You know what I mean? So that's the reason, is because, you know, let it sit there and then we'll revisit it if we revisit it. If we don't, it's just hard drive space. Who cares? You know, to me, that's worth leaving it there.
Yep.
Absolutely. I want to talk about this, kind of piggybacks off this idea of like, this song sounds like you took a real kind of multi-genre approach, because it originally wasn't dance music at all and you brought it into your world, but it's also got like a very current and timeless feeling, because it's got like this kind of anthemic quality. It's kind of trancey, it's still housey. And I want to talk about dance music's ability to be so vast, and you guys have really kind of taken that in separately. You guys are both really multi-genre outside of this project, and you guys have been able to inject a lot of that approach into this project. Why do you think it's important that dance music continues to be this kind of ever-evolving thing where genres within the realm are so different from each other, yet they all kind of fit together in a certain way?
I think honestly, when you start going for long enough, it starts that. It's like we've both been producing now probably for over 10 years, moving in on 15 maybe. And it's like, that's usually where I think, you know, once you get pretty good at a certain genre, it interests you to like, oh, what can I expand on? So, I mean, I think that's where it starts generally, but you know, you don't ever want to get bored with it. I'd say it's like, we want to push ourselves to continue to try to have fun. And then the hard part is just making it side piece. You know, Dylan says this all the time. It's like, how do we make it sound like us? So it's like we're pushing, but still trying. It's like this little square. You got to move it up, but you got to put it within this little box of like, it's a healthy thing. You want it to be like, that's side piece. You know what I mean? But we want it to be like, that's 2024 side piece. And then next year we want it to sound like 2025 side piece. And then, okay, maybe when a retro one, we go back, oh, that's classic 2020 side piece. You know, that's every now and then. It's like this battle of like, how can we keep you on your toes, but make sure it's still us, you know?
Yeah, I think we also have always, in a way, and it's a good thing, we've been kind of outsiders in the world of house, right? Like we don't we both didn't start in it, even though I was, playing that early on. And that's what this, and Ricky's done this and he's produced it on this side or whatever. So when we came in, it wasn't like we were just trying to jump on a wave. We got lucky that our genre tech house as a, kind of umbrella, like, blew up, and we wanted to stick to this. That was part of our parameters when we started SIDEPIECE. But I think that in a way, we have an advantage because we both, like he said, we've worked in so many genres. Ricky grew up, in rock bands, and I grew up doing this and that. And I think that in a way, like, the way that we approach it is from an outside perspective, but we're also kind of coming in from being influenced by everything and anything. Like, really, like, whether it's hip hop or rock or, other genres of dance music, and kind of saying, like, how do we make that, or how, so I'm thinking, like, through the example of, like, who created Love, like what Ricky said, is when he first started with Midian, and it's like, it was written not as a dance record. It's like, a good song's a good song,
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like when you make a movie, like, the best movies are always the ones that come from a good script. And so it's like, you can have all the visual flair, you can do whatever, you can fucking throw, sorry if I can't swear, like $100 million of visual effects, but, like, if you don't have a good script, you're never going to hit that mark. So I think that in a way, like, a good writing and a good, like, base is like, is all that matters. And to us, we were like, we like giving ourselves like a general genre, like, restriction, but in a way, we're like, what can we do within that that's almost like bridging it together? Because I think that us having this outside perspective makes us so much more dynamic than just what we could be, I guess.
Absolutely. And I mean, maybe that's the reason people trust you as, like, cultural curators. And it kind of brings me to my next question. You guys have twice hosted the Insomniac Discovery Project, which is, it's putting your taste on trying to figure out who's going to be the next up and coming artists. How have experiences like that opened you up to fresh talent? And, what does that do for you in terms of just, like, also giving back to the community?
I mean, we're kind of both. This year actually has been one of those things where, due to us feeling more excited and more plugged in, we've kind of even just done that outside of, obviously that's a place that helps us find new talent, but most of mine is just from scrolling on SoundCloud, YouTube, social media, just DMing kids. So the natural way of content these days is actually the best for someone like us to discover people more than ever. This is the best time in history to discover good music. Cause I'd say about like 10, 15 years ago, people were like, social media makes all music crappy and there's too much of the crappy music, right? Now, 15 years later, because the tools are so easy, and I don't mean this in a bad way, now there's a lot of good music. Like, there's really not this problem of, like, there's so much crappy music. No. It's scary. There's a lot of good music. You know what I mean? It's like an intense amount of fire. Like, there's people that are 10 years younger than us doing what we do just as good, if not better. So we're like, it can be nerve wracking, but in my opinion, to make it, if you remove your ego from it, it's like, this is just helping house music. Let's just play their records because it sounds great. You know what I mean? That's the best thing for us, is to just discover these kids, when they're first starting out, and just hit them up and be like, hey, like, love your music. Let's do something together. Or, hey, we played your song. We'll tag you. Here you go. And it's like, to me, that's the best part of what social media has brought for someone like a DJ. Like, we get to play everyone's music.
Yeah.
Obviously, as a rock band or an artist, or, something a little less DJ friendly, you're just competing. You're not really playing other people's music. For a DJ, though, it's kind of the best, version of social media for us, is that we're like, we can just go, boom, this is dope, make a set. Great. I mean, at this point, we kind of do play, I'd say 80% our own edits, remixes, and originals, but there is always room for after parties and things like that for us to be like, yo, this is a hot record. Let's figure something out or do an edit. But, it's kind of more mentality. People are always like tweeting and like, like complaining. I'm not a fan of that. I think it's like everybody is adapting in the same area. It's not like you're all on your own island, like, I have to do so much content and this and that. No, we're all battling the same thing. Yeah. Make it work. You know what I mean? Like, everyone has to adapt. It's a natural thing. If you adapt in a way that makes you proud of what you want, you can still be genuine and adapt. You know what I mean?
100%. 100%. I want to talk about something one of your managers, Jason, said in an interview. He said one of the mottos we have on Team Sidepiece is that everything we do needs to be a moment, whether that's a big song that hits the right way or a crazy show or even a simple press appearance. We strive to make everything the guys do something worth talking about. And this kind of piggybacks on your last point about content. We're in an age of dance music where creating moments is becoming even more important. How are you guys continuing to make all these moments, but doing it authentically?
I mean, I think it comes to, that's funny because it came from, the management side, which is, a huge part of, putting things and getting things in front of us, right? And helping to put those pieces together, whether it's, appearances or podcasts like this or whatever. But I think it goes back to even just what I said earlier about us being kind of like a bull in a china shop, right? Like in a way when we came into the scene, and it's like, we're not really, like in some ways, I feel like, Ricky and I talk about it, like we're not always fully accepted into our scene even sometimes. And I think that's okay because it's like, we're kind of, we're always evolving and whatever. And I think that we're open to kind of maybe stepping out or doing things or an activity or an appearance or whatever that maybe some people in our world might be like too cool for or not want to do or think is not the right thing. And I think that the influence of us and working in so many other genres and working, on behalf of other people or, coming from all these different things has influenced our whole team to kind of just always be thinking outside the box. So, I mean, I don't think that there's one specific like answer for that where it's like, oh, well, it's because we listen and we do this one thing. It's just each individual situation and opportunity that comes up to us. It's like, how can we do that in a way that is different and is us? I guess, I don't know if that makes sense, but.
No, it does. I mean, I would say that having an outsider's view of things has historically always played an advantage. Like if you look at the history of music, even like things like punk rock or house music's inception all came because people wanted to do something different and they came from outside of the establishment and they decided they wanted to take what they saw and improve upon it or do their own thing with it. So that's just a net advantage to you guys, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, I think it's important, to be able to go with the flow and be able to see and listen and see what the for lack of a better word, the youth is doing in music, right? Because music is a young person's game. It doesn't matter what genre it is. I mean, that's why, all the best bands start when they're 19, 20 years old, whatever. Like when we started making our music, we were around that age too. It's like you come into the world with kind of like, like you're a sponge, you're taking in everything. And I think that it's important, even as you get older and more experienced, to not get stuck in your ways about like, oh, well, I only do it this way or we only do it this way. And Ricky and I think have both been able to, adapt and go with the flow, but at the same time still be like, okay, well, what is that little side piece zhuzh to keep it, us, going as best as possible. So
how do you keep yourselves young thinking?
Man, it's kind of like it's kind of an art to it. I'd say like you can kind of see a development of someone, I think Diplo is a good example or, even in some ways like Tiesto and some of these guys that are still, on top. It's just that you can't alienate yourself and be the grumpy old man. That really is, if you just don't do that, you're fine. Just don't be the guy that's like, back in my day, like every single generation completely changes. Everything 20 years from now looks different. So stop, you know what I mean? It's like learn from history. Everybody always has to do that. It's a very natural thing. Don't complain and sit back and be like, TikTok's only for 10-year-olds and this and that and blah, blah, blah. It's like, just don't be a grumpy old man to me. Like that's the only difference of people that continue staying on top versus not. Just don't be lazy. You know what I mean? That's all it is to me. It's like,
just embracing change is important. I mean, you have to. Yeah.
Less man shouting at cloud then.
Yes, exactly. Great reference.
I want to talk about, I'm from San Francisco, so I want to talk about something that you guys did in the last year. You guys did the Warriors anthem. I'm a basketball fan by default because my son got really into basketball in like the last couple of years, and the Warriors is my team. How'd that happen? How'd that come about? And how cool
that was really hard for me because I'm a big Lakers fan. So
I bet
if you want to end the podcast now, you can't. No, but so I had to keep my I had to even put on a Warriors jersey, which was really hard for me as well.
Oh, that must be tough.
But no. I'm a fan. I love the game, and I love Steph and what he's done for the game. that came from a girl we were working with who happened to be adjacent to the Warriors, or I think she'd either worked with the Warriors back in the day. And we got connected, and I think that just touches on what we talked about earlier about us being like, whoa, making an anthem for them. Like, why not? Like, let's try this out. Like, that sounds really cool. And I think that there wasn't some big, 6-month plan. It was kind of like, it kind of happened really quickly. I think if you remember, right, Ricky, like and then it was like, oh, hey, you want to come to the game? You want to be on the Jumbotron? Then you want to like do this. And the whole thing was, you want to dance with the dancers? It was like, I think it all happened within like a month, and I think that, stuff like that, I think it just, we love it. It's just, it's different. It's fun. It's like reaching hopefully an audience that maybe, someone that hopefully doesn't even know us or listen to us gets to hear us for the first time and sees us acting a fool on the Jumbotron, or trying to dance with the dancers who are much better than us. So,
I mean, it's really cool that dance music's gotten into a place where we can be invited into places like that, because if you think like 10, 15 years ago, something like that probably never would have happened. So it must be really cool to be able to like even be thought of in that realm.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time. I mean, we're all a product of standing on the shoulders of everyone that came before you, right? Like, and you hope that we will be able to uplift or be the influence for someone down the line. And I think that goes for all music, but it's like, there's so many people that have paved the way for us to be able to literally be idiots on stage pushing buttons, like it's wild. But, I think that it is really cool, from even when I started in college, when, even my friends who were in Southern California, which is always a very forward thinking, place, were very like, turn that shit off, turn that techno off, turn that whatever. And to see it now where like, this is a mainstream genre that's as big as any other genre in the world, if not bigger than most.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, you guys recently were in London to work, and you guys were working on music. How does your creative energy change when you're immersed in an environment, like when you're in studios and you're specifically there to like work on music? What does that do for you guys creatively?
I mean, we always talk about how London is like, weirdly, the writers there we've found the best success with. And by success, I don't mean like a bunch of hit songs. I just mean we got songs out of it that we love to play live right now. And I don't think any of the songs that we did at that writing camp are out yet, but me and Dylan have been playing them in every set and we're super stoked. So honestly, it's tough when you're jet lagged, but the difference was we just felt like, British people and dance music is like Americans with like classic rock. Like their dance music is classic to them. It's not like, I wouldn't say every American, obviously you're into dance music, so you probably know the classics, but they know dance music like the back of their, they grew up on it. They live it. They were in clubs early. So like by the time they turn 25, they don't even go to dance clubs because they went from age 15 up, it's like,
right.
So it's kind of this thing where they got ingrained, and we noticed that when we're writing songs, they just get it. They just know how to make it, work. Granted, there's a lot of amazing writers in the States, and in other countries, but we've just so far had a really fun, time with like writing with British people. Honestly, it's been great.
Yeah.
I mean, UK folks, it's really been ingrained in their culture for the better part of the last 40 years. Like when it went there, it just did something different. Like we have the UK to thank for dance music culture as it stands today. So I get where you're coming from there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because it started here and, in Detroit, in Chicago. And I think that it's just like the fact that like you guys said, it's just when you grow up around that, and that's what's on the radio. There's more dance music on the radio there than, like that to them, that is a genre that is synonymous with pop or, whatever. So it's just different because their approach to it is they don't think of it like, oh, I have to approach it like an outsider, like, oh, I got to write songs about popping bottles in the club. Like, when Ricky and I go there, we're like, oh, thank God that they know, like they know the lyrics that we want, the things, and then we have fun because we can like be on the same wavelength. And sometimes we're American writers, and there's so many talented American writers, of course, but we talk to them sometimes, and we're like, oh God, this is so cringy. Like you're doing what you think someone wants to hear, but it's like it never works.
I love that. I love that you said that. I think it's important to be able to like get outside of like that headspace and to be around people that are writing for the art of it.
Yep.
as opposed to what they think is going to pop off on the radio.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
I always end with this question. I've asked you this question before, and I'm sure your answer will have changed, but I always like to ask, what excites you about the future of dance music?
That is a good question. I think for me, it's that there's been, I'd say it's been happening. I wouldn't say it's like brand new, but I've really enjoyed seeing bits and pieces of more live music added into dance music. I think it makes it feel more human. And granted, I'm a very computery producer, synths and all that, right? I'm very in the box, but you know, I play instruments as well. So I feel that that's one of my most exciting things all the time. Like I said, we just, for Who Created Love, recorded an acoustic version, and you know, being able to get to play guitar again, and you know, Dylan was on the piano, and Midian singing live, and we had a cello player, and it's like, you know, we're like a little band. That to me brings back so many like good memories, and also hope for the future that, you know, we can mix it in very well and do it tastefully. You know what I mean? Because we don't want to ruin. It's still dance music. We want to be like, yeah, we're just a band, but to me, that's always fun, being able to bring in those human elements for dance music has been really, really exciting.
Love that.
Yeah. I think for me, it's more just of the embracing, you know, the love of the there's always so much change in this music and genre. And I think that, you know, in many ways it can cause frustration or headache, but in so many ways it keeps it so exciting. And I think more so than any other genre, because there's so much obviously you can do with computers and synthesis and all these things, but like what Ricky was saying is that there's just so much talent and so many cool ideas coming out there. Like I get so fired up hearing this new drop or this new sound or the way that someone approached something, and it gets me fired up because it's like, what can I do? And I think that, you know, I'm about to turn 36 years old. I mean, and I'm old in this scene, but it's like I feel younger because I get so fired up. I get just excited about this music that I did when I was 19, you know? So
That's
I think that it's just like, I think as long as we continue to keep embracing change, but in our way and just to enjoying this ride of dance music is gnarly. Like we're part of, you know, I don't know, the music's going to be insane in 100 years. We're not going to be here for it, but it's like, hopefully that something we did touches whatever came before, you know, it's like, it's just rad. Like, it's just cool to be a part of creating, you know, and I think there's nothing better than that. Like the fact that we get to all be here making a living or talking about music is pretty cool, you know? So
I turned 43 this year, and I started going to parties when I was 17. And I don't think I've ever been this excited about the future of dance music since I started. Like it's amazing how much good music is coming out. It's amazing how fresh the scene feels. It's amazing what people are doing on stage. It's amazing what's happening with festivals and with club culture. Like all of it is just, every single day you get to wake up and see like, fuck, like I never would have thought we would have been here 25 years ago. So
yeah.
Yeah. So
think
beautifully
about 25 years from now.
I know. Yeah. I can't imagine what my son, who keeps telling me that my music's a little bit too for him, is going to be able to see in the next 25 years.
You will be the old man yelling at cloud for sure.
I definitely will. I can see it in my future.
It happens to all of us, yeah.
It does. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time out to speak to us today. Always a pleasure to speak to you both, and much respect, and can't wait to see what comes up for you guys.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.